real quick, I remember being in the school, I used to go there often, and a young man was having a rough day. He was like, you know, in the hallway, and in the hallway they have folks kind of positioned in the space, and when he didn't want to talk to this person, he would walk down the hall and there was somebody else for him to talk to. He was just having this bad day. And I'll never forget that, because I've seen so many schools walk in and it's like, security, where you at? This kid's out of the classroom, go do something, you know? And it wasn't like that. He didn't want to talk to this person, but it was somebody else. And they were like, they knew his name, they knew who he was, and he had somebody to talk to. And so the power of that, I think, is it's invaluable.
3 out of 4 teachers of color teach in 25% of the schools that serve most of the Black and brown kids. So most of our teachers of color work mostly in schools with high percentages of students of color. So when teachers of color leave the classrooms, it disproportionately impacts students of color, right? And so you really need to ensure that new teachers are supported, they're mentored, they're having professional development opportunities, and they're coming to understand best practices in teaching, which includes the culturally relevant piece that we were talking about earlier.
Even if, you know, me as a Latinx individual, if I'm paired with a Latinx teacher for the first time, and that teacher does nothing differently in the classroom compared to a white counterpart teacher, just by the simple fact of being exposed to that teacher might induce me to behave differently, because it might inspire me to study longer. It might inspire me to, you know, not skip class. We can also call it the role model effect.
As an educator of color in New York City, my first 5 years was spent in a predominantly white school. And I had always, of course, felt that like being Black in this space is important for many of the reasons that have been articulated, but I think I felt it the most the day after Trump was elected. And I let the Black Student Union know that I was going to be having a conversation after school in my room, and when I came into my room, there were queer youth, Muslim youth, Black students, just students who had felt underrepresented in the community, and they all came to like the Black teacher to talk about their issues. There was this like burden that I think needs to be articulated in spaces like these, because I don't have the same space as white teachers. They have space to kind of just like plan and to grade and to do these other things, and I'm bearing the burden of this like trauma and emotional baggage that many of my students bring into the space and expect me to help them process.
Is there any research on like the trauma that I guess the lack of teachers of color create in students? So it's like, and I can speak to this, like I felt, and I think it's hard to like talk about it, but I really felt invisible and like I didn't matter or I couldn't make it. And so like how do we study that? Like what are the that's psychological trauma.
So we're talking about increasing the pipeline of educators of color. Having principals of color tends to reduce turnover for teachers of color within a school.
One of the things I think we talk a lot about is recruiting, and so what that does, it means is really increasing access to high retention pathways into teaching. When we think about high retention pathways into teaching, some of the things that we need to double down on are the ideas of service scholarships, loan forgiveness, and grants, because the financial burden on teachers of color are extremely higher than for white teachers.
And I was extending it in my mind toward culturally responsiveness as well, right? Because it almost hurts more to have a teacher who looks like you, who is not teaching you or who is oppressing you, than it does to, you know, experience what you experience from the norm, which is people from the dominant culture oppressing you. So we also want to make sure that those folks are as well prepared and equipped, not only in their subject area, but also to be culturally responsive kids as possible.
You can just imagine how many young people are in need of that, but how that would change their lives if we were able to do that in such a powerful way. So